Hi, I'm Chris Brown, Fleet Group Editor at Bobit, and welcome to the next episode of Fast Forward interview series. Fast Forward is about connecting with leaders in fleet, tech, and automotive to show what the future holds for fleets of all types. In this episode, I interview Sharon Etherington and Krista McKenna of Roche. We discuss Roche's sustainability goals as a corporation and how fleet is addressing the many challenges in measuring, managing, and improving carbon emissions. Well, Krista, Sharon, hey, thanks for joining us on this edition of Fast Forward video series.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
For sure. Okay, well, let's start big picture. Who is Roche? What does Roche do?
So Roche is a pharmaceutical and diagnostics company, and we are worldwide. Our headquarters is in Switzerland.
And let's talk about the fleet. What's the makeup of the fleet? Sharon, you want to dive in here?
Sure. Right now, we are transitioning from current hybrids and PHEVs into full BEVs. And right now, we've got two need sets. One, do we have a vehicle out there today that is sustainable to our emissions goals? And what right now we're looking at small SUVs.
Okay. Can you just give us a sense of the overall fleet size and what type of vehicles you got?
Sure. So right now, our fleet size is roughly about 1,600 vehicles, and they are located across the U.S. And we partner with different OEMs, and we primarily have small SUVs that help support our need sets, which a lot of our drivers have tools and things in the back of their vehicles.
Okay, great. Well, let's talk about Roche's overall sustainability goals and what's important to Roche. What does that roadmap look like?
So Roche has some aggressive sustainability goals. Part of those are to be CO2 zero by 2050. A component of that is that we have a sustainable fleet by 2030. Sustainable fleet to Roche, those terms, that means that there's nothing that's burning a combustion fuel source. Everything that would be electric that is powered off of sustainable electricity.
Okay, great. And we talked about before the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Can you get into that importance for Roche?
So Roche has been ranked one of the most sustainable healthcare companies on the Dow Jones Sustainable Index for over 10 years. So that is very important to the business and to the family about having a sustainable business and making sure that they leave the right footprint.
Yeah, and let me add to what Krista just mentioned. For Roche, sustainability is not only about environmental. What do we do holistically? And what we're trying to do is meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations through how does it affect our nature? How do we invest in medical advances? What do we contribute for a better tomorrow for all?
Yeah, really good point. And I mean, when you talk about the Dow Jones Sustainability Index in and of itself is kind of new to me, but it's now important in the corporate world, right?
I think that it's important investment wise. I think it's important to young people that it's the kind of company that they want to work for. So I think that it helps us retain talent. There's a lot of avenues that this touches on.
Okay, well, let's turn it kind of to fleet in a broader sense, and we'll kind of drill down from there. But obviously, fleet is a big emitter of CO2, and it's an important aspect of corporate sustainability. But what are the other forms, when you look at a corporation in general, forms of sustainability?
When we look at corporate sustainability, it could be product sustainability. What type of components are going into our product line and packaging? It could be, what's representing our fleet is a topic that we're touching on today. But it's also about how much energy that we're using in our manufacturing or warehousing process or in our buildings itself. And is that sustainable energy? And it even drills down to flights. We track all of the travel that our personnel take.
That's great.
So all of that data is collectively looked at, and that's how we enter into that Dow Jones Sustainability Index. There's even factors contributing to how much waste that we generate or how much waste that we recycle. So it really touches on every avenue of the business.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, well, let's talk fleet. Let's talk first steps here. You need to measure, and then you need to get that baseline to improve on that measurement. Is that one way to start, Sharon? I mean, how do you do that, and what data do you collect for that?
So absolutely, data collection is the key and most important. And again, we partner with our safety, health, and environment to provide the data. And then how do we roll that up globally and compare ourselves to different divisions across Roche? But absolutely, data is most important. We look at fuel, we look at mileage, we look at electricity. How much electricity are we pulling in, and what are the MPGEs that we're getting from that information? And then we also look at business versus personal miles, and how do we ensure we're measuring both of those as well?
Okay, let's really get into the specific challenges in managing and improving carbon emissions as it relates to the fleet. Sharon, go for it.
So, right. How are we improving? What we're trying to do is look at our fleet. Where are we located? How many miles are we driving? Are we driving through the night? Are we coming home every night and parking our vehicles? So we really have to take a full analysis of what that footprint for each driver looks like. And then we basically have to look at where does it make sense for us to improve, and how do we improve to make sure we maximize and lower our emissions. For example, the state of California, obviously their infrastructure is better than maybe some other states across the US. And so our focus is now going to be on which state provide the best infrastructure that we can maximize upon as well. And another item is we're looking into what electricity companies can provide the right and the most accurate data for us to do the calculations.
Sure. And how do you, what are the factors, what are the ways that you gain the data? I mean, obviously telematics, is it from fuel cards, or how do you collect it?
Today, right now, the way we are collecting is a couple different ways. Through a standard fuel card for our hybrids and our PHEVs. We are collecting the data through a software, through our level 2 charger. And then for public charger, we're collecting the data through our charging card. So we have 3 different avenues, and I'll repeat those again. It's the home charger, level 2. It's our public charger with our electric card, and then our fuel charging.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a challenge to basically bring those all together. I mean, was that I guess an issue that you've got a process down now to get that information?
We have the process down. And again, keep in mind, it's coming from 3 different avenues. So you have 3 different documents. You're trying to put that together. And how do you ensure you're comparing apples to apples when you have the data? And what data do you have to look at to make sure you're getting the answer you believe is the right one at the end? So it's not a smooth process yet. It is somewhat it's daunting data that you have to pull together and make sure you have the right structure to get the answer that you believe you're working towards.
Yeah, sure. You know, so many factors go into sustainability, but also usability of fleet, right? I mean, you've got a duty cycle, you've got ergonomics issues. I mean, there are vehicle specs that are different vehicle to vehicle. And then there's product availability in this environment. How do you marry all this to really make it work and keep sustainability as a focus?
That's a great question. And what we are trying to do is work through each opportunity as it arises. And we are not running the race. We are jogging the race. And what I mean by that, to your point, there are so many outside factors, whether it's, as you mentioned, you have got your sustainability goals, but yet you got ergonomics, you have availability of cars, and it's almost like you're conducting an orchestra, right? You got to make sure everybody's in harmonization to make the right decisions and have the right outcome. And we're trying to do that. It's not easy, but we, again, are not running the race. We're jogging the race.
Yeah, really great. So, you know, EVs has been obviously on everyone's minds in the last couple of years, but really it's not the only tool in the toolkit to improve fleet emissions. Can you talk about some of the other you know, arrows in your quiver, I guess, to lower carbon emissions?
Sure. From a fleet perspective, I'll answer that and then I'll turn it over to Krista. But from a fleet perspective, obviously ICE vehicles, we eliminated those some time back and switched over to hybrid, and then PHEVs, and we have EVs. But is going to a full EV the right answer for every state, for every person? We're finding the answer no right today, but we also believe and know that next year is going to be a whole different year than this year. It's going to be more improved. There's going to be more opportunities. We believe the infrastructure is going to be better in place as each year go on. So we're looking at it more from a vehicle perspective, usability and infrastructure perspective on making the right decisions and the right types of vehicles in that area.
Any follow-up, Krista, a big picture on your...
Yeah, my thoughts are that we have sustainability goals, but we have to keep in mind that this has to be something that's usable for the business as well. So a lot of our fleet is sales and service, and so they have to haul around large pieces of equipment, their tool bags, components that they're doing to provide service. So we have to make sure that the vehicle selected is adequate for their needs to be able to do their role. I think another important factor with electric vehicles is that your cost, a lot of it is based off that full mileage that the car can go. So a lot of it's, looking at that algorithm of how far are they typically traveling on an everyday or on a weekly basis, what would provide them a full charge so that they don't have that downtime in the middle of the day. So there's lots of different aspects and challenges that we're looking at, again, to make these baby steps, like what Sharon mentioned, to jog along the way. So it's not a clean cut answer for everyone. And it depends. We have some challenges with staff that may live in an apartment complex, so they don't have the availability to charge their car overnight. They may be doing it only when they're at a client or when they're on the road. So, as that infrastructure develops across the country and again in different states, I think we'll see the landscape will look different.
Good point. What about improved routing, Sharon? Is that something you continually look at, or?
Absolutely. Our service and sales team actually just now is being looked at. How do we maximize the service and sales teams that we have? And our organization is looking at what is their territory? What does that look like? How do we ensure you don't have 5 service people or salespeople going into the same hospital? So what they've done a great job is really honed in on providing 1 or 2 employees to go into one particular hospital to better route and better maximize their structure of where they're going every day. And again, we don't want people working 20 hours a day. And so what we want to do is ensure they have quality of work-life balance. And to do that, how does that look like from their territory perspective? And that's absolutely being looked at.
Well, I mean, it seems like that efficiencies gained are going to benefit the carbon footprint as well. And this is one example of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me just ask you too, are offsets and RECs part of the toolkit, and how do you guys approach those? And can you explain RECs?
I can take that question. So for Roche, sustainability means that we're not consuming any fossil fuels. So we don't subscribe to we can plant trees or provide an offset in some way. Those practices, I think are okay, but that's just not what they have adopted for what sustainability means to them. When it comes to RECs, a REC is a renewable energy certificate. And so if your provider of electricity in the area that you're in doesn't provide green electricity, we are actually fortunate the provider for the Indianapolis campus here does. So we can do that. But some area of the country, that's not a possibility. So you can purchase a renewable energy certificate in order to offset the electricity that you've actually purchased.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. So, this requires a company-wide effort. You've got to have your relationships in different sectors of the company, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders too. I mean, maybe both of you want to just take a stab at what that means for Roche.
I think for me, Roche has established from the family's perspective that sustainability and their footprint for environment and employee safety is number one. And that precedent is, it reiterated through our leadership at our site. So that focus and the initiative for us to make small changes for the big picture, it makes it easier. It's not a battle to work with my colleagues and my business partners. They're already on board. So I really take that for granted, and it's a blessing.
So great. I mean, so there's sort of external partners, and you talked about internal, but external partners that you're working with now, Krista. What does that look like? Go ahead.
We have an external FMC that provides us with all of the data and pieces from our drivers. So they're able to provide us what their business miles are, their personal mileage, and then what their energy consumption is, whether that be a combustion fuel or the electricity.
Okay, great. And then there's also stakeholders externally in terms of being able to tell you information on grids and the stuff that you can't collect yourself, but it's good to know that sustainability package. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So we have another partner that helps us to understand how clean the energy is, if it's renewable, what that percentage is, based off the zip code that the driver would reside in. So that helps us to make purchase decisions. And it also helps us to understand what portion of electricity that was charged by that driver that was clean electricity. Because we're trying to have everything be a zero CO2 impact.
Okay, great. And then the last kind of component there is kind of certifying the data or having a trusted third party give you and say like, hey, yes, that you're right in what you're saying, and we stand by this assessment. How does that work?
Sure. So as part of that Dow Jones Sustainability Index, there's a third party that evaluates all of our data that we submit. So part of that is the vehicle data, our energy, our waste data, all of that is reviewed by this third party to certify that our data is accurate, that it was well thought through, and that we had the right pattern.
Okay, great. And hey, listen, last question here, guys. In terms of certifying the data, that's important as a public company. And it might be important in terms of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Who do you partner with on that?
Sure. So we partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and what they provide is analysis of all of our data that we submit. So it encompasses data about waste, about any energy usage, about our fleet. So all of that is reviewed to ensure that it's accurate and that it reflects our processes and our operations. And they review that data usually around every 5 years.
Okay, great. Well, we've got a lot of great information here for our audience. I do appreciate you joining me, Krista and Sharon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.